Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about Blazor. So let's get into it. Blazor. So I had a question here, how I feel about Blazor and how I think it's going to affect, well, the job market and all that good stuff. So just to kind of get this out of the way, Blazor is Microsoft's attempt to create a WebAssembly framework, or at least a WebAssembly option for the .NET developers out there. So the basic idea is that you have the ability now to write a WebAssembly application in C#. That's the long and short of it. And although there's quite a lot of developers that are excited about this and see a lot of potential in this, of course these people are in general people who are already working in .NET and C#. I will just introduce another way of thinking about this. And you see, the first thing that I think is interesting here is that there is an assumption here. And the people that get excited about this has already, in my world, kind of taken one step too far. And I've said this in a previous video as well, where before this makes any sense to invest in, unless you're doing it just for personal reasons and you are doing it because, hey, you find it interesting, why would you be excited about WebAssembly coming to C# in the first place, at least from a professional perspective? Because almost nobody is using WebAssembly for real application development. It is certainly not something that is considered to be common knowledge among people who go and work in the industry. It's not, I mean, there are 100 things that are a lot more important than WebAssembly. And it's almost, even if you were to put it on your CV, some people will kind of shrug and say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Or some people will at best have a little bit of a conversation with you about your experiences working with WebAssembly, but nobody's seriously going to consider you for a job position just because you have WebAssembly on your CV. That's how low the adoption rate is at this point. It may change in the future, and that is a good segue into why I actually think that Microsoft is doing this in the first place. You see, the whole idea behind the .NET framework and the whole idea behind Microsoft's success with this platform is to have this ecosystem of options or tooling that a C# developer needs in order to build pretty much whatever they want. That is how you keep people invested in your platform, because there's actually a lot of benefit to having one single language or one single solution to rule them all. There is a lot of problems that come with too much entropy within the ecosystem and too much diversity. There are benefits, of course, as well, but for just getting stuff done and actually producing business value, it's a very efficient method to have just one single platform that everybody standardizes on, and then it can be used for every use case. And Microsoft's whole success within this area comes down to being able to support all of the things that you want to do. And that also means that if there is some type of new trend coming along, like WebAssembly, that may be an issue for them in order to, when it comes to keeping people in place, if you will, then of course they're going to introduce a option for a C# developer, because they kind of have to. If you want people to stay within your little sphere here, you need to make sure that that sphere has everything that they could want. Now, what's interesting is that as it stands today, it was one of the representatives from Microsoft talking about Blazor on a Tech Talk, which I was watching, and they actually, they talked about all these benefits. And I mean, to me, it seems pretty cool to be able to actually use C# code in such an interchangeable manner. It's felt very intuitive to work with, and my first reaction was that this seems pretty straightforward and is very in line with the way that I want to work within front-end development in order to solve all the different things that comes with the SBA problem with state management and things of this nature. It felt very intuitive. And then we got to the section, because I had this burning question in my head all throughout the talk, which is, how do they solve the garbage collection problem? Because C# has a garbage collector, and WebAssembly doesn't support garbage collection. And then they finally get to that little, it was almost like they kind of just skipped that part, or they went through it really quickly. So like a really long segment about just how great everything is and how awesome it is. And then this is tiny little almost, it was almost like they didn't want to talk about it, section about how they solve that problem. And the way they solve it is that they, by default, like just for any type of WebAssembly application you want to build with Blazor, they ship a 2 megabyte JavaScript file that contains the runtime code in order to basically solve this problem for you. So you pay to use Blazor, you pay just right now, and of course they said, oh, no, I mean, we're going to, of course, improve this and so forth, and maybe one day WebAssembly will support garbage collection, but it doesn't today. So out of the box, your application will be 2 megabytes heavier just because you're using Blazor, right? Now this is, if we really think about it, it may not be the worst thing in the world. And this is the argument that I will make about this. You see, to a person who is not necessarily a C#, like a .NET developer, this might be a no-go. Like, people will not necessarily feel that, oh yeah, I'm going to pick C# for this because, you know, it's the best option for doing WebAssembly, because it's honestly, it's not. C# is not the best option for WebAssembly, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be good enough for people to be a viable solution. And that is exactly what C# or Microsoft has offered here with Blazor. Blazor is not the best option for WebAssembly, but it is going to be good enough. It's going to get the job done. And the value of being able to continue your work with C# and just stay within the .NET ecosystem is high enough. Like, the people who are already invested will want to stay on the platform just because they can stay for the value of staying on the platform. It's that, like, that the considerations there are very unlikely to be about the user's experience. It's more going to be about productivity and the company's perspective, where it's actually very valuable for you to just be able to keep everything on the same platform and not have to think about it so much. So that's at least what I think is about Blazor. I think that it's a very corporation-y type of solution. It's the same thing that Java, I mean, Oracle has done the same thing for Java. Feature matching, guys, it's always about feature matching. And feature matching is sometimes, I mean, there's this illusion for quite a lot of developers where they think that everything in programming is about the best possible solution to a problem, when it's actually not. It's more about getting people to a certain point of productivity, and then other more emotional and subjective things start to matter. Because, as I said, if performance was the most important thing, nobody would use Blazor just because it has this overhead. Everybody would be using something else without the need for the garbage collector, right? The garbage collector. But I can promise you that Blazor is going to have a relevancy. But as I also said, it has to do, I think that the adoption of this has more to do with whether or not WebAssembly becomes a thing. So what I want you to take away from this is that Blazor, I see that becoming a massive success on the assumption that WebAssembly becomes a success, because today it's not. It's almost non-existent. So learning Blazor today is just a personal investment that you make. It might be a curiosity, but it is certainly not going to help you get a job. Almost no one is using it, so there are a lot of more important things for you to focus on. However, if WebAssembly does become a thing, this is a necessary, this is something that Microsoft needs to offer, because of the way that Microsoft has, sorry about that, has structured their ecosystem. They need to keep up the feature matching, and Blazor is an attempt to feature match to the point where, hey, you can use C# and .NET for all the things. You don't have to use anything else. And I don't see that, I mean, that's going to work out, at least for the .NET developers. For people who are not .NET developers, I don't see Blazor becoming something that creates an incentive to become a .NET developer. But for the ones who are already on the platform, for sure, this is a good solution. Have a great day.